There's an old story in the old mythology of our world known as the story of Icarus. It is about a man who, well, as everybody knows the saying goes, this man flew too close to the sun. It's kind of to long story short it's a story about mankind's hubris and how they believe that they can go beyond a point that they should. And as a result, bad things happen. In the case of Icarus, he built wings out of wax, he used it to fly, and he flew too close to the sun. I'm very much paraphrasing the story. You can actually look up the thing yourself, but it's important to understand the analogy of flying too close to the sun melts the wax wings and causes you to fall back to Earth, where you belong. The reason I'm telling you this is because this week's chapter of One Piece is chapter 1114, Wings of Icarus. And we don't get some Icarus analogy explanation, we just get that as the chapter title, and a little bit later in the chapter, Vegapunk himself actually makes a reference to this, and that's why I wanted to preface this. Hello, Internet, I'm the hero of Julios, and we're going to start off with the artwork of this week. It is Kinemon explaining to Yamato exactly the favor that he wants Yamato to do for him, because, hey, if you're going to go on a pilgrimage like Odin did, we might as well give you a reason to go on the pilgrimage, because just doing a lap around Wano isn't really paying homage to the journey that Odin took. So, what I want you to do is go and shrine this sword in Yasuie's stead, because he is no longer able to do so because he died. So with an actual reason for the pilgrimage in hand, Yamato is going to set off. I don't know who's going to go with her, but it could be maybe Momonosuke might take a walk, or maybe Hiyori will go along, considering she's been locked up in Wano for so long, or in the Flower Capital area, because she was, the most sought after woman, so it's not really like you can just go on tour and, travel as you please, since Orochi's constantly asking you to hang out, for nicer way of saying it. But with that out of the way, we'll get into the actual chapter itself, which pretty much is responding to Vegapunk the way everybody else has been responding to Vegapunk. Oh my gosh, the water levels are rising. This is crazy. What's gonna happen to us? We got Navy HQ where they're like, oh my gosh, the water levels are gonna rise and we're all gonna sink, and that's horrible. And Sakazuki sits at his desk and because this is all Sakazuki gets to do anymore. This is a man who burned half of a Emperor of the Sea's face off, and now he's just stuck grumbling behind a desk. I honestly kind of feel a little sorry for him. If his leader card wasn't such a pain in the card game, and he didn't kill Luffy's brother, and didn't kill a whole bunch of people on Ohara, and didn't slaughter his own men for trying to run away, and okay, maybe I only feel sorry for him because it's a desk job and I hate desk jobs, but other than that, yeah, so he's going through it. He's kind of just sitting there, and what weirds me out about it is the fact that Sakazuki isn't shocked. There's no widened eyes, there's no shocked expression, there's no lines around him. He's just sitting there calmly, almost like he knew something. He is the fleet admiral, so maybe he's privy to some information that the common man is not. I mean, it is what? You got Eam, who nobody knows about, so the five elders, Kong, and then Sakazuki. So, I mean, if we're going by the logic of the world, he is the third in command of the world, as far as the world knows. He's actually fourth, but maybe he is privy to some info. Maybe he knows the world's sinking. And maybe, if you go back to the theory about Sakazuki's actually the one behind Sword, which is why Hibari's in it, because there's the theory Hibari is Sakazuki's daughter, then maybe he knows the world is sinking, which is why he's allowed Sword, which allows him to sort of backdoor his way out of not letting the world sink. But whatever the reason, he's not the only person on Earth listening to this. You got Mocktown, who are laughing it up because they don't believe in the sky island that floats above them. What makes you think they're going to believe the world's sinking? Then you got Water 7, where Polly's like, you know what? If he had announced Water 7 is going to sink into the ocean, I'd have totally believed it. But the world? That's a bit far-fetched. And I mean, I guess we're lucky. We're 2 years ahead of schedule. Boss, how goes turning the island into a floater? Because you're going to have to pick that one up, apparently. But the most interesting location we get visited is down in Impel Down, where Doflamingo is laughing it up because, you know, Magellan's a nice guy because, you know, he asked, hey, since I'm going to be stuck in Impel Down, could somebody at least throw me a newspaper? And I guess, you know, Magellan's sitting at his desk. He's the vice warden, and hello, it's Vegapunk. The world is going. Crazy things are about to happen. Please get your snails ready. And Magellan was like, "Oh, that sounds pretty serious." Hannibal, our boss, you know, head warden. You're in charge. You should probably get those snails ready. I'm gonna go make sure Doflamingo gets his newspaper. Went all the way down to the 6th floor, and uncharacteristically, Magellan is just sitting there with Doflamingo as the two of them discuss the recent events. The water levels rose a single meter, which, as Vegapunk explains, has rendered some beaches completely gone. Some islands have already become too submerged. I mean, look at Long Ring Land. It's mostly a flat island. So having the water level raise a meter could have sunk most of it. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of island when the tide is low, but when the tide is high, there wasn't a lot to begin with. High tide might actually just erase the island for a bit. Which raises a question, how many other islands have been erased? Not like Leluzia erased, but erased just by sinking. I know the theory that, you know, if everything sinks back down, there's the big Pangea, you know, Wind Waker style. But there's got to be some islands where, after Eem erased them, there were a couple other islands in the world that the water level just, and that was it. That could have, I mean, we don't know how often the Mother Flame's been used. This might be a Vegapunk thing that recently happened. If you go by the Ennis Lobby theory, it could be that Ennis Lobby was one of the islands that got blasted by the Mother Flame, and, you know, now there's a giant hole there. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is, who knows how many islands have already been lost, and how we don't know how often the Mother Flame's been used, or if it is Uranus, how often Uranus has been used in the last 900 years. So as Magellan and Doflamingo are sitting there talking to each other, Magellan does lament that the recent raising of a meter water level actually caused some problems inside the prison itself. If you think about it, the entrance of Impel Down was pretty close to sea level to begin with. So imagine the water level rises, and then suddenly the first floor of Impel Down is just flooded. Imagine you're in the first floor of Impel Down, you got to deal with cuts on your legs because of the whole Crimson Hell thing, and now seawater's come in, and it's putting salt water in those cuts. That's not the torture we were promised, Magellan, or I guess Hannibal, since you're the head warden. You got to do better. You promised torture by poisonous spiders and cuts. You did not say we were going to salt these wounds. So, naturally, that's going to be a problem, but Magellan even goes as far as to ask, how much would the sea level have to raise to sink the entire world? Doflamingo, just laughing like a maniac next to him, is like, hey, you know what would be a really funny idea, Magellan? If we all just moved higher. Let's just all move to higher ground. There's got to be somewhere in the world that's so high up that, you know, everyone could live up there while the world sinks. You know, maybe a certain red line. Let me back upstairs, please. Because, you know, we know Doflamingo really wants to go back to the Mary Joie. He wants to be a celestial dragon again. They said no, he's got some secret, which is why he gets these things that he gets. But that's pretty much where we leave off there, as Vegapunk's speech continues. He explains, a few days from now, as of the recording of this message, you will receive information of a massive earthquake that will cross the entire world. My guess is Vegapunk was able to predict this because he understands the weapon, the Mother Flame. More importantly, Vegapunk understood the ramifications of it, and as soon as Eam used it to erase Leluzia, that's when Vegapunk hit the record button, because he knew exactly how many days it would take for that earthquake, which meant this recording would function properly. Which means Vegapunk also knew exactly what day they were going to go kill him? I guess, yeah, that's what Shaka told Dragon. When you're as smart as I am, you can predict your own death. Dang, dude's out here playing 5D chess when I've barely even learned 2. So as Vegapunk predicted, this earthquake actually occurred, and we cut to Longring Longrand. We got the pirate island freaking out, and even Smoothie, wherever she is with the rest of the Big Mom pirates, is like, is he talking about the earthquake that happened today? So, yeah, Vegapunk predicted it properly, and it is pretty crazy. He then goes on to say that this is the result of my first sin. I allowed for a event to occur. He kind of tiptoes around the fact that he helped create the weapon that destroyed Leluzia, but he, without a doubt, is talking about his part in the Manhattan Project. While he's sharing this grievance, though, we have the 5 elders still freaking out. Like, they're seriously debating going scorched earth, losing out on the Mother Flame, and just blowing everything up. But they're still pushing through. We even have several attacks from Saturn as he's trying to break through the Straw Hat crew to get to Robin. But as Vegapunk starts mentioning the Void Century, that's when he's like, okay, never mind. I don't got time for this. I'm sorry. I know, Robin, I promised I was going to try and destroy you. It's really rude of me to go back on that. But, yeah. He just kind of launches them away. Robin is strong enough to make a spider net and sort of catch the rest of the crew as he shoves them. And Saturn literally ignores them and starts heading for the room where the Mother Flame is in. And as he's bursting through that door, Vegapunk starts explaining about a kingdom 900 years ago in the Void Century. As he is starting to talk about the 900-year gap and the sin that is researching it, that the only information we have is located on ancient stones called poneglyphs, Saturn and the other elders, they start telepathically talking to each other and telling each other, okay, just kill every sign of life that you can sense. Just whatever it is, get rid of it. If it's a transponder snail, great. If it's a bug, great. If it's the Straw Hat crew, that's pretty cool if you can pull that off. But I would suggest focusing on things that you know are definitely not the snail last. So they're smashing everything. Saturn's in the room of this massive scientific facility, just smashing every small creature he can find, saying, not this one, not this one, not this one. And while he's doing that, in the background, we finally see the Mother Flame. And it's huge. Well, the thing containing it is huge. Right now, within the Mother Flame is a tiny ember. Tiny is a relative term. I would say the fire, in proportion to everything else around it, looks about as tall as I am. For the record, I'm 6'3", so it's a pretty decently sized flame. My guess is it is currently in its recharge phase. It's currently building up to the point where it will be this massive sun sitting inside of this tank that then just gets shot into the air, maybe relayed on a satellite, or just curves based on arcing. Kind of like a mortar shell, and then just lands on whatever island it's supposed to destroy. It is nice to see it, though. It is nice to finally look upon it. And as Vegapunk is explaining the research that he put into the ancient kingdom of highly advanced technology that surpassed us, even though it was 900 years ago, In this research, I flew too close to the sun, which harkens back to the title Wings of Icarus, and that's pretty much all it was, but that's not the point here. The point here is other people are responding to this information in many different ways. Vegapunk continues to talk about the Void Century, and we cut to Orangetown, where we see Mayor Boodle, and I assume his granddaughter, or at least a village child, is like, well, that's silly, Vegapunk. Doesn't he know at the end of the Void Century that's when the 20 kings came together and they made the world government? And Boodle's like, yeah, I suppose that is true. What do you think about that info, Shoo? And then we cut to Saul, who is, he is sitting there, well, okay, it's not Saul, it's a silhouette of a giant in a cowboy hat leaning against a giant log and laughing dada she to himself. We have not seen Saul's face yet. But the third and most important person that we cut to, weirdly enough, is, and forgive me if I pronounce her name wrong, Shalria. For those of you who that name means nothing to, Shalria is Saint Charlos' sister. Yes, that's right, everyone's favorite punching bag. As all of these world nobles are complaining about Vegapunk giving out such stupid information and talking about earthquakes and not making them instant lobster shoe horn makers, so that they can put shoes on their lobsters. How dare he? Somebody silence him right now. And Oda focuses on Shalria, maybe? But anyways, she's sitting there, and she's like, Void Century, 900 years ago. What is that? And she's interested. And I'm sure she's not the only world noble interested. Now, I'm not gonna say, she's pretty, that means she's good, because being ugly does not mean you are evil. Oda has a tendency of having someone's outward appearance reflect their inward appearance. Obviously, there are some exceptions. T-Bone is a very kind person. Doflamingo is a very evil person. But for the most part, how you look reflects who you are, because that's an easy way for Oda to convey good and evil. That's why most world nobles look absolutely horrifying. But some improve as they get better. Look at Rosinante. He's a very handsome young man. His parents were reasonably okay looking. Mjosgard is one of the perfect examples. This guy actually had a bit of a goofy mug about him, but as he learned to be a better human being, ended up with a better face. Shalria might just be one of those pretty but evil people. Oh, I may be focusing way too much on a single panel, but there might be a good section of the Celestial Dragons who, after Vegapunk finishes this message, might start asking questions that the other world nobles don't like. We might be seeing a Celestial Dragon civil war. Just something to keep in the back of the mind. So, as Vegapunk talks about flying too close to the sun and breaking the law and his second sin of learning the true history of the world, he openly admits he did not learn all of it. I want to be clear that no matter what Vegapunk says next chapter, Oda is free to add something that Vegapunk did not know, because in this chapter, Vegapunk flat out says, I didn't learn everything. But what I did learn was about a certain man who lived in that ancient advanced kingdom, who 900 years ago, much like the sun god Nika of Legends in the Giants, he fought with a body that stretched and contorted and twisted and wiggled and inflated and laughed and smiled and made the world a better place. This man was known as Joy Boy, and he was the first pirate. So, what did we learn today? We learned that Joy Boy was the first pirate. That's kind of cool. We learned Joy Boy had the powers of the Gum Gum fruit, probably. And we learned that Joy Boy was the epicenter of the entire thing that happened 900 years ago, I guess. A couple of those things we kind of already knew, or at least kind of already guessed. It was pretty safe to assume that Joy Boy was the previous user of the Gum Gum fruit. It's pretty safe to assume that that straw hat down in Maryjois in Eames' little dungeon is probably his. It's safe to assume that they lost, considering the, world government began. But as cool as this reveal is, and I really do like the idea that Joy Boy was the first pirate. We're really going to sink our teeth into the big lore of One Piece, because lore is the most important thing to me in any story. The more backstory you can give me on why I should be upset or joyous about something, the better. I am absolutely going to love the next chapter. But we're going to have to wait until the next chapter. For now, let's take what we learned. Take a deep breath. Oh, I know I needed that. And let's get ready to see what happens. No new chapter next week, so maybe I'll come up with another theory video. I got a lot of views on the Warlords theory, so maybe I'll try something in that venue. You guys do seem to like theories. If you want me to talk about something specific, I'd love to hear in the comments, or maybe I should elaborate on things with this chapter, because I feel like I was bouncing around a lot with my thoughts. Regardless, though, thank you for watching as always, and I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.